Hey, welcome. This is Jeff Heggie of the Jeff Heggie Show. I'm excited to be here with my friend, Steph Amonson. Steph is someone that I've known for a long time, about 16 years. Met him in the building industry up in Canada, and he's someone I've looked to as a good friend, as a mentor, and is just someone I really look up to. And so I'm excited to have him on here today. And Steph, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, it's interesting because I look up to you as a friend and a mentor. So I guess we're in a circle here, right? A little bit about myself. I've been in the housing business now for 28 years, and also doing some development. And, pretty simple guy, not the smartest guy on the planet, but really have dug into the house building business and tried to learn as much as I can. I came from the sales side of things, so I had to learn a lot about construction. I had to spend a lot of time out there in the field and try. And if any of my construction guys are listening, they're still going to shake their head that I'm really not smart. But I've got a lot of good, smart people around me, and that's been a real key to our success along the way.
Awesome. And actually, that's something I have in my notes that I wanted to talk to you about that we will get into, is the people you surround yourself with. So we will talk more about that. But where I want to start is something I did on my other podcast a few days ago because of a conversation I had with you. So tell me, what's a good life?
I saw you do that the other day. Well, if I had the answer to that, I'd be rich. But I've seen some good answers lately, and I like them. I lean towards them. I was watching a show, and I won't say which show because people make fun of me, but one of the characters on the show said that basically today was a good day. If I could just string together a whole bunch of days that look like today, that'd be a good life. And it keeps resonating with me that, some days are really good. Other days, not so great. And yesterday, on my Instagram, on the gram of the Insta, I posted that, a lot of times we say, tomorrow will get better. The reality of it is it doesn't always get better. Sometimes it gets worse. But I think when we look at our good days, if we can just identify what made them good, and try to replicate those. So if we're in our job and we've had a good day, what was it that was a good day? Was it our attitude that, brought people around me up? Or was it my attitude that brought people down? Could I impact that? Or was I doing things that were productive? Did I feel productive? Did I go home feeling productive? What made me feel good, valued, honored? Lots of things, right? So it depends where you come from on the spectrum of I guess, people approval, but feeling good about yourself is really, really important.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? That's something I've thought a lot about since you talked to me about it. And as you saw yesterday, I even had Jamari do his own little episode of daily success strategies on the same topic. So yeah, I was glad you shared that with me. You know what? Something else that I've heard you say a lot that has also been something that's always stuck with me, and people that listen to my other episodes on daily success strategies have heard me reference it a lot. And I don't know if I usually, when I reference it, I probably don't call you by name of where it comes from. I give you credit for it, but you always have said hope is so much greater than fear. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, you said that, and I get a little knot in my throat, a little emotion, because it's sort of a primal message. When we wake up or when we go to bed, if we can think that the world is going to be better tomorrow, or that there's an opportunity for things to be better, or there's an opportunity for happiness, or an opportunity to embrace what we love, then that keeps us going. That keeps us driving forward. But, there's those moments of fear. What if it doesn't get better? What if this job sucks for the rest of my life? You get caught up in that. But I still believe that when you look around and you ground yourself in some very basic fundamentals, there's a beautiful planet. We have great opportunities. There's amazing people around us. And the world really is a decent place. Then you can sort of circle back to the hope that and defeat whatever fear is riding you right now. So Brandy, a girl that I used to do a little bit of what you want to call it, an Instagram show with, I think it was between the two of us, we coined that phrase just accidentally one day. And it has stuck with me for a long time. Hope is definitely greater than fear.
Yeah, no, that is where I first heard you say it. And no, I appreciate that. And there's so many things with so many of the things that we are fearful of. We look back on ourselves of the things that we had so much fear for that caused so much anxiety. And how many of them actually came to pass? We get so tied up in it, and a lot of times they never happen. And so that's why I think hope is so important.
And even if they do come to pass, we get through it.
Right.
I recently read or started reading, I'm not done yet, a book called The Happiest Man on Earth. He's an Auschwitz survivor. So if we can create framework where we can use other people as a reference, we can really define how great our life and our opportunities are. And, I'm talking a lot deeper than I am as a person, but, and I'm stealing context here, but it really is, if somebody can go into a place and sit inside a dark, gray, cold cell, surrounded by 80 other starving, emaciated prisoners, and know, not for certain, but know that if he didn't work tomorrow, if he didn't comply with what his captors were asking of him, would simply shoot him. And watch as women and children are systematically eliminated. And somehow come out from all of that and find positiveness in life. I guess my flat tire wasn't so bad.
Right.
Or I guess my mortgage being 3 days late ain't so bad. And unless it's death, what stops us?
Right. Who's the author of that book?
I have it sitting right behind me, but if I got up, I could go get it.
All right.
You'd see that I'm not wearing pants today.
Have you read Man's Search for Meaning?
No, I have not.
Viktor Frankl.
Yes.
Same situation. I strongly recommend it. And that's out of that entire book, the message that I love the most out of it. He said in it that everything can be taken from a man, but the last, and I'm not going to say it exactly, but the last of the human freedoms, which is the right to choose your attitude. And that's how we got through that.
Absolutely. The book's I just Googled it here, so I didn't have to get up and show you my briefs. Eddie Jaku.
Okay. And say the name of it again.
The Happiest Man on Earth.
Okay.
Life of an Auschwitz survivor. And I went to Auschwitz. I took my mom there about 6 months ago. It was the first trip. I had this booked before this thing called a pandemic hit us. And we couldn't go. My mom's aging now. She's in her high 70s, mid 70s. She'd be mad if I told you anybody her real age. But I took her to Europe and I took her back to her birthplace. And but one of the parts of that trip was to go to Auschwitz and to tour it. And without question, generated probably the most emotion I've ever had in one single day. And as I'm speaking here now, it's a great reminder of how good we have it and how bad things could possibly get. So I don't know of any, there are, I'm sure, but I don't know of any single human condition that was created by man with such a large number of people that would just compare in awfulness. Sure, we could talk about the killing fields and we could talk about Rwanda, we could talk about all sorts of things. But for me, the experience there just really hit home about how bad things really can be.
Yeah, and I remember seeing the pictures that you shared from there, and it, you know, I've never been there, so I haven't had that feeling of standing on those grounds, but you know, just talking about that again, it goes back to the hope is so much greater than fear.
It's I don't want to take this to a dark place, but all it is it creates a framework. And if you cannot recognize the framework and look at your life and look at your circumstance, how wonderful we have it, then, you know, I don't know what to offer you.
Right.
So, thank you for letting me go down that rabbit hole.
All right. Well, let's change speeds a little bit.
Certainly.
So, well, no, I appreciate that. That's good stuff. But, you know, one of the things, so with this podcast, there's usually a couple different groups that I have listening to it. One is on my athlete side with my Confident Athlete and program and stuff. So we do talk about mindset and stuff like that, but also on entrepreneurs and high achievers and stuff. And so I want to talk about entrepreneurship a bit because I've got some questions that I get asked a lot that I'd like your input on. But one of the things, I mean, you've got a lot of experience. In fact, you know, as families, we were having dinner together a few weeks ago, and even I think it was my wife asked you, how do you know Spanish? You know, you've got a lot of things in your background. You got a lot of experiences that have built you to the person you are today. So talk a little bit about, you know, how some of the, like, okay, I'll start with the question that I want to get your input on is, I sat down with some young men this past week, and they were talking about, you know, how do I become an entrepreneur? How do I do that? And so talk about your experience, where you started, the experiences you've had, and where you are now.
You know, as you were asking that, I think it's a really interesting question. How do I become an entrepreneur? How do you become a plumber? How do you become an electrician? How do you become a doctor? And they all have an expense to them. They all have a time frame that you have to spend learning. I think it was Malcolm Gladwell that highlighted the idea that you have to have 10,000 hours to become an expert. So you want to become an entrepreneur. So people will go buy books. People will look at successful people, and you know, there's a spectrum of those and how they did it. There is this overriding assumption, okay, that if you work hard and you just put a whole bunch of time into it, you'll make a business a success. And I've seen many, many, many businesses go down in flames. Very, very hardworking people. There's all sorts of skills that you need to be a good entrepreneur. And I can tell you that I, more so in the beginning, didn't possess a bunch of those skills. I've had some great mentors along the way who said, you need to be in a little bit more of a box. We need to help you with some of the structure, because I'm the hair's on fire. Let's run in that direction. Let's take huge risks. Let's create havoc. And then I need a whole bunch of people around me to sort of stop and say, okay, yes, but count the beans. We got to plan for this. We got to finance this. We got to do it. So each of us have to learn those skills as we went along. And so if you want to be a good plumber, and I can use that as an example, right? You're going to find somebody out there, typically a journeyman, and you're going to work underneath them. And you're going to watch them, and they're going to teach you as much as they know, and you're going to start applying those things. So for me, I've had some great mentors. I've watched some great people, okay, who were also not wonderful accountants and not wonderful planners and not wonderful businessmen, but they had great ideas, and they had drive and they had determination, and they took that idea and they molded it, and then they surrounded themselves, or they started building themselves a team of great people that could count beans, that could assemble product, that could ship, that could market, that could do all of those things for them. And eventually, they have success. So I think the number one skill of an entrepreneur is being a driver. I have an idea. I want to employ 10 people to make that idea a success. And I'm going to drive everybody around me to success. I have never seen a business succeed without a driver. If you don't have the skill set to motivate people, to move them forward, to help them get what they want so they give you what you need, the chances of you building a large-scale, successful organization diminish. It doesn't mean that you can't create a smaller business, or you can't create a smaller enterprise where it's maybe you and another person. You know, I think of a lot of good realtors who create their own business. Can't create teams, can't create large teams. The most successful realtors I see all over the world create these huge, large teams. They leverage time for money, and they become very successful. That's one type of business. So I'm rambling a bit here, but I think that how do you become an entrepreneur is very much like how you become anything else. You have to identify the skills that are necessary. It's not easy because, you know, every book will tell you something a little different. Okay? You have to surround yourself with great people, and you have to drive towards a common goal. One of the greatest leadership lessons I think I ever learned was find a common enemy, create groundswell support to defeat that enemy, and drive your team forward to that goal. I used that for many, many, many years.
I think that's great. There's some great advice there.
What's that?
No, I think that's great advice. And, you know, as you talk about that too, you know, someone looks at you today, and I mean, just looking at one hat you wear, you're overseeing a number of building companies. How many homes will you guys build this year?
Between all of them, anywhere between 300 and 400.
Okay. And so you're overseeing this, but, you know, as you talked about those experiences and surrounding yourself with those things, you couldn't be doing that if you hadn't been in that position where you were a builder, which you were a salesman, which, you know, what everything you gathered and surrounded yourself with and built up to get to where you are now. And, you know, so many people say, you know, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to oversee all these building companies under me right now. And it's those steps to get there.
Well, and everything's a comparative. And I repeat that. Everything is a comparative. And it doesn't take much to be better than the next guy. It really doesn't. So you talked about sports and elite athletes. And the one thing, and believe me, look at my physique. I'm an elite athlete. But the one common thread, I love watching sports, by the way. The one common thread in any elite athlete is they were the first to get on the field and the last to leave the field. And you can extrapolate that any way you want. But they were, Wayne Gretzky beat up how many garage doors with a puck, a ball, a tennis ball, right? You talk about Kobe Bryant and, I'm going to be the last to leave the hardwood. And all it is it's just a little bit more time, a little bit more effort. So you can take two super smart people and it really, if I could move it in just, or frame it like this, it is that tiny little bit extra, that tiny little bit of small habit that over time pays huge dividends. So I have a sales team that I've managed for years. Being on time means you're there 5 minutes early and leave 5 minutes late. That's on time. So if you take that over a lifetime, 40 years in the field, I don't know what the math is, 10 minutes a day, 20 days in a month that you work, or 24 days in a month that you work, 240 minutes times 52. Over a lifetime, you will sell 5 or 6 more homes than the guy sitting next to you, because you will have caught that person that showed up 5 minutes early. Well, is that a big deal? Well, it depends how you look at it. What if you're 10 minutes early? What if you're 15 minutes early? What if your guy that comes in an hour early and stays an hour late? And over a lifetime, that adds up to an additional 75 to 80 sales that you've made because you happen to be available. You happen to be that guy sitting at your desk with your open sign. Well, if we take the math and we do that, could be $500,000 in your fee. So what would you have been doing if you weren't sitting inside that sales center? And I talked to a lot of people, well, I'd have been at home, I'd have been reading a book, I'd have been, maybe playing tennis, I would have been doing lots of activities. Well, you made that choice then. And there are 17 hours in a day that you have to invest in a good life, as you call it. And it's all going to pay dividends over time. So if we invest all 17 hours in work, in the pursuit of making money, you'll sacrifice a whole bunch of other things you should have dedicated time to. People use the word work-life balance. Hate it. Because 1 foot in minus 50 water and 1 foot in plus 50 water means 1 foot is boiling and 1 foot is freezing, and that's balance. I like the word work-life integration. I'm not good at it, I'll admit. I'm more on the spectrum of the side chasing the hours at work than chasing the hours at family. But when you can integrate, when you can when you can blend your life together and you can enjoy what you're doing and you can daily put a bit more into it, a bit more than the other guy, over a lifetime of work or business, you're going to have success.
And that ties into what you mentioned earlier about Malcolm Gladwell and the 10,000 hours. I had one of my friends, Tyson Durfee, he's a world champion calf roper, tie down roper. And I interviewed him on this show and he talked about the same concept. And one of the things that putting the time in, and he figured out that to be a world champion, you probably needed 20,000 hours. And for himself, where he's at now, he's in the mid 30,000s of hours right now. But the thing that did, which I think ties into this, is he says, especially when I was younger and I was going to these rodeos, I felt a different confidence level because I had put in the time. I deserved it because I was doing these things. So it's the same thing. Let's take the salespeople that are putting in that extra 10, 15 minutes a day. They know they're getting those guys that are running from work and they miss all the show homes because they're closed. And, oh, there's this one that's still open. They've got a different confidence level of everyone else.
It's easy to measure. Things like this are hard to measure. But it's easy to measure when you produce something. And if we use that as an example, let's just say you're a framer. I have a very good friend that's a framer. And if every day he spent an extra hour putting the blocks of wood and the panels of wood together, over a lifetime, he'd build 60, 70, 80, 90 homes more than the other framer. He'd get paid for those 90 homes. But what he'd also get is he'd get more experience, faster, sooner, younger. He'd become faster at his game. He'd work smarter. He'd do all of those things that experience brings at an earlier age. So it's not just the time that he puts in that'll extrapolate over time. It's the experience. I watch this guy, and this guy frames faster than other guys because he learned younger. He learned faster. He took advantage of those times. So it doesn't end up at 60, 70, 80, 90. It ends up at 200, 210, 220. And then that same guy goes, but I'm going to take some other good people around me, good young guys, and I'm going to teach them the same way. And now I'm going to replicate myself. And so it's easy to watch that guy and see all those houses pop up everywhere and say, yes, you put that extra hour in every day. Look at how much you've accomplished. It's very, very hard to measure that when you're an athlete, okay, or you're an entrepreneur. We only measure those in terms of success. We only determine success by a buckle, okay, the Heisman, money in the bank account. And that's not always along the way what success looks like. Success looks like winning one extra high school game than the other team. Success looks like really putting the effort in every day, honing your skill, honing your craft. So it doesn't matter if you're a businessman or an athlete, that extra time, that extra tiny bit of time every day over time has monstrous effects. It really, I don't know what else to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the compounding that hits it right on the head. So no, thank you. Now, one thing that you've talked about right from the beginning is surrounding yourself with good people. So let's talk about that. I love the term proximity is power, but I talk about it a lot, the importance of who you surround yourself with. John Maxwell says you become the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. But just talk about that concept, because I think that's something that doesn't matter what you're doing. This is an important concept.
I'll get this expression wrong, but it's true. It is very, very difficult to soar with eagles, waddle with turkeys. And I know I said that wrong, but there are so many studies, so many verifiable facts that people will surround themselves with other people. And if you hang out with people that make $60,000 a year, you'll think like them, you'll talk like them, you'll act like them, and you'll make $60,000 to $70,000 a year. And to rise above that takes more effort than one can possibly think. Because human nature is what you've surrounded yourself with is people that don't really like it when you have more success than them. It's not a fault of theirs. They want to feel like they're in their tribe. They want to feel like they belong. They don't want you to show up one day driving a brand new $100,000 diesel truck because you've had more success than them, because it's going to make them feel less. It's going to make them feel less of a success. It's inevitable. Now, if you surround yourself with people that make 40% more, it is a much easier concept to rise to that because you've surrounded yourself with people that live and swim in that area, that arena. And so when there's opportunities, they're not talking about opportunities at this level, they're talking about opportunities at this level. Can you be happy? And this is all goes back to, can you be happy making $60,000? I'm just using that number, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is not about not being able to be successful or happy at that level. We're sitting here doing a show because people are dissatisfied or want to be better. They want to take it to the next level. And we can measure that in strict dollar terms, not always the best measure, but the reality of it is you're going to exchange a whole bunch of time earning money over the next 40 years. You might as well get the best return possible for that time. Don't let it consume you, because that creates a whole other spectrum of problems. But if you're going to go out there, you can choose to work at McDonald's. Very noble job. I love their coffee. I love the kids that hand me that coffee. But if you choose that and you choose to never elevate yourself out of that job, still have a great life, but you've exchanged your time for a fixed amount of money for the rest of your life, it's a whole different scenario. My first job was at McDonald's. I loved that company. They handed me a sheet and they told me the 12 things I had to do on a fry station to be successful. I still employ checklists and like that in my business today. They broke it down into one successful. Well, within days, I mastered the fry station and I mastered, the 10 to 1 at the time. It was called 10 to 1. Those are the little patties. There's 10 patties to a pound. Then I mastered the quarter pound grill. Then I think I was a crew chief and you call out orders. It was like a great system to teach you great skills. And at some point I outgrew that and I took those great skills and I went to the next level to be paid. If you're not going to leverage that experience, you're not going to try to push to exchange more time for money. And you're going to continue to surround yourself with all of these people that want you to stay working at McDonald's. They want you to stay as part of their crew. Great. Sounds a little off, but don't come to me complaining. At 40 years old, when you're still working at McDonald's, and you say, I can't buy a house, can't buy a car, and the world owes me something. I'll take heat for some friends and say, it's a living wage. It's a living wage, but it is not a success wage. There's a big difference.
Right, absolutely. Something that I think ties into that as well. And I thought of this as you were talking about your recent trip to Europe. We have the people that are around us that have that influence on our decisions, on how we think, all those things. What about experiences? What about the experiences we create in our life? Because, you can talk about the charity work you've done in South America and those sort of things, but what do those experiences do to help us, whether it's in our business or just in our life?
Yeah, you may not agree with me here. Okay? And I'm okay with that. But I made mention that you have 17 hours in the day. And I have friends that have created a routine for their lives that has limited their life's ability to be fulfilled. And I'll listen to them. And so I'm only basing it on what they tell me. And they'll say things like, oh man, you got to do this. Oh man, you so like this, that, the other. And I'll give you an example. I have friends that love football, love watching football, and they invest 15 to 20 hours a week watching football. I like football too. I invest about 4 hours a month watching football, if I'm lucky. So you got 20 hours a week. Everything your life is surrounded by. And this guy's a great friend. So he's got Monday night, the buddies come over, they do it every night, and I think it's Monday Night Football. I don't even know. That's how little I know. Okay? And they all have a case of beer and they all order pizza and wings. And every Monday, 4 to 5 hours is spent watching football. But that happens on Sunday as well. And then it happens on Thursday as well. And then, well, they're in a hockey league. And so their whole life revolves around that. And they're investing their time and they're enjoying themselves. But I can tell you what, 24 beer a week times 52 weeks times 40 years has an effect. It has an effect on your health. It has an effect on your wallet. It has an effect long-term on your psychology. It has an effect. It's all the small things. So does that mean a successful person can't enjoy football? No. What I'm saying is that anything in that excess is going to have a long-term effect on you. I used to play golf. I hated the sport. I sucked at it. I'd go out, I'd shoot 84 one game, and then I'd shoot 124 the next. And I wasn't having fun. So I stopped playing. I don't miss it in the least. I'll invest that time somewhere else. So you asked about experiences. I believe, for me, the variety of experiences that I've had in my life allow me to say I've lived one of the best lives of anybody I know. I've had that extreme privilege to go to South America and build houses for people on a poverty scale that you couldn't imagine. I've had the extreme privilege of hiking to waterfalls in Iceland, visiting countries in Europe, taking my 9-year-old son through Asia, visiting my 20-year-old son in Thailand. These are all experiences, but what they really have done for me is created this whole library of conversation starters, commonalities. I can meet somebody and go, you're from England, and I can talk in length about London. I've walked from one end of that city to the other 3 or 4 times with some great friends. So I think experiences are vital to round out our lives, to round out what we do. And I'm a firm believer in the variety of experiences. And what that does for us as people, it's important. So all you NFLers that go to every game on the weekend, don't get mad at me. I'm just saying you also need to do a trip to Thailand sometime and experience some of the most amazing food you'll have in your life. Some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. It's a balance.
Awesome. No, I appreciate that. Another area that I'd like you to speak on is influence. You've been in a lot of positions where you've had a lot of influence at different levels, even through your positions that have had an impact on government through different positions you've been. So talk about, I guess, one, the importance of influence, but also how does someone become more influential?
I've been fortunate. I've been fortunate enough that I have had the opportunity over time to sit and enjoy a coffee with a prime minister. Not while they were prime minister, but after. But I've had the time and the fortune to sit and talk with ministers of immigration, ministers of trade, several times in my life to sit and have dinner with the premier of our province. There's a good fortune. It's not, they happened because I got to volunteer in a position in our industry, running our associations. And I felt fortunate. Not necessarily, and I don't think that every politician we meet is something we should idolize, I guess. But they got there, and they're there, and they have a large amount of influence. And it's an interesting proposition, I guess. By volunteering on many different scales, that's probably what's given me the most opportunity to influence. I've got to stand in front of more people. And believe me, some of the things that I did while I was in those positions, some of them were great. Others, I influenced people in the wrong way. So influence is important, but you use it properly. We can make some mistakes along the way, which I admittedly have. But what drives that? This is a good question, Jeff. Is what am I trying to influence? If the subject matter you're trying to have impact benefits other people, makes life better for other people, it's a lot easier to put that message forward. Not everything benefits other people. Sometimes it just benefits yourself, a very small group of people. So I think I'd have to contemplate that question a little bit more. Today is an example of dealing with an issue on oriented strand board, OSB. Every house uses a couple hundred sheets. And we're watching the market again climb, where the prices of this 2 weeks ago were $22 and today it's $56. There's a lot of manipulation going on in the marketplace. But that's not really what's bothering me today. What's bothering me today is I have a very good friend who's a lumber guy, lumberjack. And throughout the past 2 years of record high lumber prices, has actually had these mills come and try to grind him down in what they would pay him for the wood that they work. Probably arguably the hardest of anybody in the cycle. And I can stand here and tell you they haven't made a dime more. Well, huge companies across Canada and the US are reporting record profits. Bothers me. So if I could influence, if I can make a post, if I can send a letter and influence something that would change and impact those guys that are actually out there physically in -20 weather, cutting trees down, actually get a share of these record profits, to me, that'd be a good influence. What does it take to influence that? Just speak up. You've been in a room full of athletes. The one that influences the most is typically the one that stands up and leads by example. Speaks up.
You know, and I've watched you do that on a high level like that, have a influence in an industry, in a province, in a country, whatever, and have seen you be very influential that way. But something else that I really appreciate is because of who you are, the influence you have, and the character you have, I've also seen some very generous influence. When an individual, let's talk about an individual that discovers he's got a serious health problem, and I've seen you pull people together to support, and you know, the influence you have and where it reaches, how that influence has helped bring people together to support a cause or a person or a family. And so that's been awesome to see as well.
That's but the credit doesn't belong in my court. the credit belongs to the guys that pull together. And yes, I said this earlier, everything requires a driver. So I got to be the driver in that situation. But everyone that, I remember what you're talking about, everyone in that room opened their wallets, required action. And I guess if you're just strictly talking about influence, yes, somebody's got to stand up and somebody's got to say, hey, here's the right thing to do. Wish more people took that time.
Yeah, because you're right. Someone else may have been able to stand up to give the same message and get a good result, but they didn't. And so you need that driver. And so it's been awesome.
It's I don't remember the quote either. Like, all these things pop in your head when 100,000 remain silent. The world changes, not always for the better. So it is important to speak up. It is important to bring your message forward. But I would temper that with, what are you benefiting? Who are you benefiting? And what are you trying to protect? And we really have to dig deep and ask ourselves sometimes if the influence we're trying to exercise is really benefiting what we think it is. I remember, I'll give you a great story. We went to El Salvador to build houses. And the first year, I was supposed to attend a meeting that tells you, don't do these things, but I didn't attend that meeting. I was busy. But I remember going there and sneaking into my bags. I had bags full of candy that I was going to give to kids. And I did that. We went out, we built the house, and all day I'm standing there and I got bags of like high chews and Starbursts, and I'm handing them out to all these little kids. And I think I'm Santa, I'm a hero. And then later that day, a friend of mine came up to me and says, hey, there's this lady over here I want to introduce you to. I'm like, oh, okay. And I turn, and it's a lady, and she's got to be 75 years old. She's got a big basket on her head, and it's full of candy. And her only source of income is to sell candy. And she hasn't sold any candy. And I look at her, and it clicks. That in my egotistical generosity, I have hampered this lady from making an income. Which, let me tell you, she sold all of her candy about 3 minutes later. But we have to really, I think the lesson I learned there is we have to really dig deep when we're trying to use our influence, when we're trying to present a picture of ourselves. What's our end goal? Why are we doing this? And although it sounds great if I said to everybody, yeah, I handed out candy, most people would say, yeah, great. Kids were happy. Beautiful day, lots of smiles. But the impact that I had down the road, I really had to recognize. And I still don't mind carrying a candy or two and handing it out. But the wholesale act of preventing somebody from making an income that day really impacted.
That's a powerful story. I've never heard that story before. So no, thank you.
El Salvador gave me a lot of powerful stories. And that's what goes back to your experiences. So yes, it's great to surround yourself with the people of the income level that you want to be, of the place you want to go, the success you want to see. But you want to be a real good person. You've got to dive into all these other little things. You've got to, every once in a while, take a look at why you're there. You've got to walk the cobblestone streets of Birkenau. You have to throw a hammer onto a house in plus 48. You have to volunteer at a homeless shelter. You have to speak at a conference of millionaires. The spectrum provides you with a lot of balance.
Yeah. And you know what, that's what when you said, can you be happy with 60,000 a year? I was thinking of El Salvador. I was thinking of my time in the Congo and seeing some of the happiest people that had nothing. And those are part of the experiences we need. And
I'm sure you've heard this, that comparison is the thief of joy.
Right.
And joy is the root of happiness. So in the pursuit of more, understand why you're doing it. Understand what you want to achieve. If it's just about collecting more money, more homes, more cars, there's times in my life I've been very guilty of that. Or if it's about building a future, or creating a plate for success, or about giving back, or a balance, those things are questions you have to answer for yourself, because it gives you purpose. And I find that over time, if you are a leader without purpose, things fall apart. You need to have a purpose. You need to set one for your family, one for your coworkers, one for your friends. It all has to have a purpose. I don't want to leave this. I know we've got only a few minutes left, but if I could tell anybody anything and want them to write it actually down, and I'm not reinventing something here today, your life will become, the outcome of your life will be the culmination of all the tiny, small, little decisions you made on an hourly basis. So if you decide in your lifetime, and let's just use a number, that you're going to have 52 a year, let's call a life of working 50 years-ish, around, you're going to have 2,400, 2,500 Friday nights. If every Friday night is spent in a bar till 3 a.m. and a cab ride home, that cumulative impact on your life by the time you reach 70 may not mean you reach 70. They mean all sorts of things. And if you extrapolate that into every avenue of your life, whether it be time spent with family, time meditating, time researching, time gaining skills, time investing dollars, time investing in friends, if you look towards the end goal, it should very much help you to find all of the tiny little things you want to do.
That's awesome. And I mean, for those that are listening or watching, I think what you can get from this is why I appreciate and look up to Steph so much, but also, he's sat with prime ministers, he's sat with premiers, and a couple weeks ago, someone that wanted to spend the most time with him was my 10-year-old son. And we're sitting at a table eating dinner and we're having such a great time that my oldest daughter says, I've got to go to the bathroom, but I don't want to miss out. I don't want to leave the table. I mean, it's the type of person Steph is. And so I appreciate you sharing this and, sharing your vulnerability and sharing the stories and experiences, because there's so much we can all learn from it and learn from you, and appreciate that. Sure. Also, for anyone that wants to learn more about how awesome of a photographer you are, learn more about the companies you have, how does someone follow you or find out more about you?
I really couldn't tell you. I've got a Facebook page, I have an Instagram page, but those are just things that I have fun with. I've enjoyed doing this today a lot. If you're looking for somebody to look up to, I'm telling you to look up to Jeff. Which way? That way. Look up to Jeff. But look at people around you and look at who you want to become. And there's a certain amount of emulation that goes on, but look for that half hour of time with that person. I appreciate that you would direct people my way, but I have to be honest. The most important people that you can look for to influence you are those the ones closest to you. So, you can check out my Amonson photography Instagram. There's a lot of heavily edited pictures on there that I try to make look wonderful. And I enjoy taking pictures, all of them on my smartphone. And I've enjoyed that for years. But outside of that, I really appreciate the time today, Jeff. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks. I appreciate you spending the time and sharing this.
You bet. And say hi to little Richard for me. And
I definitely will.
One of the things I'll take away from my trip to Phoenix, one of the most memorable things was the time at Buffalo Wild Wings. And what an enjoyable evening just to sit and laugh with your family and get to know your kids on a much deeper, more profound level. So great kids. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
That oldest son of yours, doesn't even bother to show up. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. And thanks for all that have listened or watched, whatever you're doing. And look forward to having you back next time.
Take care. Bye now.
Hey, athletes and parents of athletes. So much time, money, and effort is put into the physical aspect of your sport to become the best you can be. But the mental game, it's often neglected, and it's just as important as the physical game. In fact, it's usually the differentiator between the good and the great athletes. Come and join me in the Confident Athlete program where you'll learn to control your confidence, develop a powerful mindset, and unlock your full potential. Go to jeffheggie.com/confidentathlete to find out more. I look forward to seeing you there.
Hey, some of you may know this, but in addition to my coaching, I've recently joined Geneva Financial Home Loans, a mortgage lender headquartered in Chandler, Arizona, as a mortgage loan originator. I've always had a passion for serving others, and now I'm proud to also be a part of Home Loans Powered by Humans. If you're in the state of Arizona and looking to take the next step in your journey, contact me at 801-830-3858 to start the conversation. NMLS number 42056, BK number 0910215, Equal Opportunity Lender.